Hello and welcome to the channel. This is just a very brief follow-up video to one of my previous videos which I recently made, and this is regarding the secret trick I used to resolve a mystery watchmaker. And in this video I was referring specifically to a watch that was clearly signed Montandon, Geneva. However, there was a very artistic license interpretation of an L, pound-shaped L, at the beginning of the signature, which would have been then read as L Montandon, Geneva. And Louis Montandon, Geneva watches are, we do find these types of watches from the middle of the 19th century. And I additionally justified this with a signature by a earlier doctor, Theodore Montandon Bourgeois, where we clearly see how the first letter of his name, Theodore, the T is integrated almost on top of the M or with the M in his spelling. And so these are these period handwriting stylistics, and I do not want to belabor this interpretation. However, I did find another very interesting example, and this happens to be with regards to another watchmaker who is known as Eugène Montandon. However, Eugène and the individual I have identified as Eugène, now when he was married, his name is recorded as Jaco, and indeed his full name is Eugène Jaco de Montandon. So this is Jaco known as or called Montandon. Now, if we look very carefully, and this is the only watch with a dial, a signed dial by this artisan. If we look very closely at the M, you will indeed see a very suggestive 19th century J, which forms the very beginning of the M. And this, very certain in my mind, is this Jaco de Montandon, in this J. This is Eugène Jaco de Montandon. But since he was going by Montandon, we still have the M, but I think this was probably his preferred signature, and indeed he probably, if he most likely didn't paint this on the dial himself, he had it rendered. However, he would have provided a sample, a copy of the signature to the dial painter. It was most probably a lady. This was often a role that was occupied by women. Now we know that he was in Lokla in the 1870s, but by 1880 he had relocated to La Chaux-de-Fonds. And this is very fascinating. There is a large group of Montandon dial painters, and they are also working very closely, it would seem, with their allied family, Jeanneret. And Jeanneret were very big dial producers, and indeed these were both metallic dials and also the other enamel dials. And there is a relative who was making specifically dials, enamel dials, and with him was working a Jeanneret, who was a painter. So once again, this dial may have actually been painted by a very close family relative and ally in La Chaux-de-Fonds. This is roughly dating from this early 1880 period, so it is very, very likely that this may have even been subcontracted to a relative. But once again, we have this stylistic signing feature that we clearly see. This is the J on top of the M. And this follows exactly, if we compare the signatures with the L Montandon Geneva and Dr. Theodore Montandon Bourgeois, and now we have Eugène Jaco J. Montandon Lokla. That this is clearly a verified signature stylistic. We see it across the spectrum in these various different, this would have been something that came from the actual signature of the artisan, and this was practiced in the 18th century and continued into the 19th century. So I just wanted to share this brief discussion about this. Once again, I am learning and noticing these very subtle additions or these almost secret entries in these watchmakers. The high level of art that they were basically providing, and this comes through in their own signatures on the watches that they are presenting for sale. And now Eugène Montandon, Locle watches, there's only one intact watch that was sold at auction. It was serial number 1666, and it was a gold watch. And of the half dozen or so other objects by this artisan, only movements are remaining, and they tend to be with golden hands, and oftentimes with gems. These are the so-called breakaway hands, and they have a space for a gem, and these often come with gems in place. But this means that all of these movements would have been behind a gold watch, and the gold was scrapped, and the only thing that is remaining of this is the movement itself. So, and we have this interesting, he was probably a smaller maker, artisan, producing only gold watches, and this would have been a luxury sector of the market. And we do know that his watches have materialized in the United States, and we see this indeed in some of the watch repairers' bookkeepings, where we see these watches appearing in the mid-1880s, early to mid-1880s, and we have the serial numbers for these pieces, and once again, these are also called golden watches in the actual records of these watch repairs. So this is just a fascinating sort of phenomenon, and I just wanted to share this erudite information, which is just hidden below the surface. But if we probe very carefully and very in a very constant and meticulous manner, we will be able to tease more and more information from the objects that come by our work desk. And so this is the concern for today. I wanted to share this topic with you. I hope it is received very well, and I appreciate your comments, your feedback, as always. And if you've also encountered this very specific signature stylistic in your own research or in objects that you own, etc. So thank you for your attention, and I wish you a very nice evening. Bye-bye.